Welcome everybody, and thank you so much for joining us for this presentation on laneway houses and garden suites. I'm extremely passionate about this property investment or type opportunity. It is, again, when a market is as hot as our current market is, and you can still find incredible opportunities that are really, again, for me, this is one of the safest investment opportunities. It's still an untapped market. It's something that's easy to understand and put value on and really see why this is such an amazing type of property for a great number of people. So I'm really, really excited to take you through the presentation today. And again, we're going to cover a lot of different things. I wouldn't call this a master class, but there's a lot of information that we're going to go over today. And one of the neat things, again, about how much we really feel passionately about this, we're going to have a ton of resources around it. So we're putting together today's deck into a guidebook that you can download and go through at your own pace. We're also going to have a number of different resources that you can tap into in terms of short videos. Of course, we're very knowledgeable about this, so you want to tap into us as much as possible. Even the ability to get property updates sent to you that are laneway house eligible or garden suite eligible. So that's something that you want to reach out to us, and we can set you up to receive automatic updates for properties that meet the criteria of these building types. So without further ado, let's kick right into the presentation. So what we're going to cover today are the zoning requirements, as well as the process of getting a laneway house or a garden suite approved, and the building process that goes along with that. Of course, we're going to talk about the advantages and the advantages for different types of people. People that already have properties, people that are doing this as an investment, or people that want to use a laneway to help offset the cost of the property that they live in. Of course, it's all about the numbers, always is. So we're going to look at those financials and give you some different scenarios to help you understand why this is so exciting, because it's very, very simple to see how amazing this opportunity is, especially when compared to some of the other property opportunities that you can buy out in the marketplace. And then we're going to go through some frequently asked questions. Of course, you can't ask questions, but we're going to preemptively go through some of the questions that people have about laneway houses and garden suites. So I think it's really important whenever you're doing a presentation, it's like, why should I listen to you? What do you know about this? Well, again, I put my money where my mouth is and my time where my mouth is. And, these pictures probably don't paint a full picture. They make me probably look like I did more than I did. But I built my own laneway house last year, and I was very much involved in the entire process. I tried to get my hands dirty and spend some time with the trades, just so I could learn kind of how everything was done and really get a sense of what the process looked like for building one. And as you can see by that picture in the middle there, that third picture, that was our garage. We had a little garage in Little Portugal, and all that dirt you see is us actually digging a hole to connect our services, so our water line, our gas line, and our electricity. So we had quite a bit of dirt in our backyard for that period of time. And then again on the right there is our first day of demo, which is really exciting. And then at the bottom, you see the finished product. So that is our current laneway house that we've rented out, and we really love it. It's a great property. Where can you build them? Well, this is a City of Toronto bylaw, but as you know, the City of Toronto, the boundaries are actually quite large. And there are 2,433 laneways in the city. Now, of course, when you're in the downtown core, you're going to find more laneways. As you move out into the peripheries, you're going to find more garden suite eligible homes where the houses aren't so quite so close together. So there's some space to get into the back of the property, which is one of the things that you need to have for a garden suite. So again, it's a really untapped opportunity in terms of 2,433 laneways. There's thousands and thousands of properties, and there's been less than 100 laneway houses that have been built so far. So again, a really, really untapped potential in the market. Now, we're not going to go through all these photos. These are just kind of visuals to show you some of the different criteria. We have a slide that we're going to go through in a second that kind of summarizes everything. But again, this will be part of our guidebook that you can download, and it just kind of helps you really visualize some of the different criteria that you need to meet in order to qualify for a laneway. But here, one of the neat things about a laneway is this is law. This is part of the zoning bylaws, and what that means is that no one can stop you from building one. You really either qualify or you don't. And out of these qualification criteria that we're about to go through, there's really only one that's out of your control. The rest of them are things that if you don't meet the day that you purchase a property, if you already have a property, that you can make work. You can make some changes to the current footprint of your garage or whatnot in order to qualify. But the big criteria here is your access to a fire hydrant. And that you can't change, right? So you have to be 45 meters from the end of the lane, and then also 45 meters from a fire hydrant. So essentially there's 90 meters you're playing with here, and that's because the fire trucks have 45-meter hoses, and the fire truck can park in the middle and needs to connect to a fire hydrant, and then of course needs to be able to get that hose to your front door. Okay, so the 45 meters in the lane, just the hose doesn't need to get upstairs or in the backyard or anything, it just needs to get to your front door. So that is the one criteria that you need to meet that you do not have control over. In terms of setbacks, you have a couple of different ones. One is the setback from your house, the back of your house, and the other is the setback from the lane, the actual lane itself. You don't want to open your door and there's cars whizzing by. And so you have to be 5 feet back from the edge of the lane. And if you're going through a laneway in the city of Toronto, what you'll notice is that, again, you're going to get a survey so you know exactly where that lot line is. But most of the garages are actually already set back a reasonable amount from the edge of the lane. Now, again, this is something that you have control over. So in our case, we had an existing garage, and we actually kept the block walls all the way around. But we were too close to the edge of the laneway, and so we just took the one wall down, and we moved it back, and we're able to build that way. And then, of course, your setbacks from your house. This will dictate whether you can build a single story or whether you can build a 2-story. In terms of a single story, you have to have a minimum of 16 feet from the back of your house to the back of the laneway house. And in that case, you can build a 13-foot tall single story. Now, when I say single story, of course, you can dig down and you could have sort of a 1.5 story and kind of walk down into the property and still put a second floor. But your height restriction will be up to 13 feet. If you have 25 feet from the back of the house, then you can build to the maximum height, which is 19'6". And that 19'6", again, doesn't take into account any sort of chimney or services that you have on the roof or something like a satellite dish or something like that. That's the structure of the roof. In terms of size, you can build a laneway house a little bit bigger than you can build a garden suite. So your maximum size is 33 feet long by 26 feet wide, essentially. It's done in meters, but that gives you a footprint of about 875 square feet. Meaning if you had a 2-story, you could build up to a maximum of about 1,750 square feet, which is a really, really substantial size property. And then the last criteria that you have to meet, again, completely in your control, is you have to keep some softscaping, meaning you have to have some grass and plants and whatnot, and you have to have a percentage of that in the space between your home and the laneway that you have to keep as softscaping. Okay, so again, the nice thing about this is that no one can stop you. If you have a semi-detached house and your garage is attached to the neighbor, then you might have to build the wall inside the neighbor's wall. But as long as you are within your lot lines and you meet these criteria, no one can stop you. This is a very simple approval process. Okay, again, just some more photos here. Just shows you some of the different criteria, just kind of visualizing what we talked about. There's a couple different examples. Again, we're going to talk about some of this today, but one of the frequently asked questions, do you lose your garage? You don't have to. There's lots of people that keep the garage and they build just above it, or if you've got a two-car garage, you can keep a single part, and then half of it is for a laundry room or a bathroom downstairs, and then you have your living room upstairs. In the case of our laneway house, we maximize the size that we could build it, and so we use street parking now and use the whole laneway house as a living space. Okay. Again, you can build balconies on them as well, as long as they don't encroach, and there's a maximum size to the balcony that you can build as well. Garden suites are very, very similar, and I just want to start off by saying, again, unfortunately, this was something that as I was preparing for this presentation, the zoning bylaws had been approved by the city unanimously, as you can see, 19-5. And there's one opportunity to appeal that decision, which came up at the beginning of this month. And some of the homeowners associations around the city, a couple of them, decided that they wanted to appeal, which is not typically how the appeals process works. And so as a result of that, this will be thrown out. It is going to the Ontario Land Tribunal. It will be thrown out. Unfortunately, it still has to go through the process. And so you're waiting for about another 6 or 8 months for that to go through, but the bylaw will be approved. There's just overwhelming support for it. The city has done a lot of work in terms of the investigations on it and putting together different programs for deferrals of development charges and all types of different things. So this will be approved. We just have to be a little bit more patient for the next 6 to 8 months for it to for the appeal to be thrown out. And again, very, very similar. You've got just a couple of different different nuances to the qualifications. The big one here, again, you have to be 45 meters to a fire hydrant. And then you have to have a 3-foot setback or an ability between your property. So again, just be careful here, because if you're looking at a house that is either semi-detached or fully detached, you may have 3 feet between the two houses, but only 1.5 feet is yours. So that doesn't qualify. You have to have 3 feet on your property line for the emergency services to be able to access. Okay, so that's a little bit of a different criteria. The second is the setbacks. You actually cannot be to the edge of the lot. So you have to have a little bit of a setback. I think it's 1.9 feet from either side of your lot. Again, you have the exact same height restrictions, but the footprint size is smaller. So you can build to a maximum footprint size of 645 square feet. Puts you at around a 1,300 square foot max on a laneway house. And then again, the softscaping requirements are the same. Okay, so again, this is something that we do have to wait for, but once it's approved, as long as you meet these criteria, you've got a lot of control here except for the 3 feet. And as long as you meet those criteria, then no one can stop you from building it. Okay, again, it's just some more visuals here showing you how this would look and sort of some of the different setback and separation requirements. We're not going to go through the angular height, but again, if you want to have, if you want to build it to the closest 25 feet, then you're going to have an angled front of the house so that there's privacy to the main property. But again, as you push back, if you have 29 feet or 30 feet, then you don't have to have that sort of same angled back wall. Okay, again, this will be part of the download for you. So here's how the process works. Again, very simple. You're going to get an architect to put some initial drawings together for you. They're going to show, literally going to show exactly how far it is from the fire hydrant just to make sure. They're going to show the setbacks from the lane and the setbacks from your home. And then you're going to apply for that, and it takes 2 weeks to get the approval, really to get started almost on building. I mean, again, we've got to go to a second application, but that's really to get your zoning approval. The second thing we're going to do is now we need to go back and get a permit application. So once you've got your initial drawings done, and again, pretty rough type of stuff, then you have to go back and get some more specific type of building drawings. That includes an HVAC permit and engineering permits as well. And again, the architect will work with you on putting together the initial sort of, where the stairs are going to be and, how your roof is going to look. And then the engineers will essentially make sure that it's built properly. So if you need a steel beam or, the foundation's not big enough or strong enough, again, in the case of our property, we had a 4-foot foundation, which is the minimum depth you need for a 2-story. And so we actually didn't have to do anything with our foundation. So a lot of the places in the city, depending on when they were built, they're really overbuilt. You don't need a 4-foot foundation on a garage, but they just built them really well back in the day, so to speak. And so that's something you want to look into. It'll save you a lot of money when your foundation is just ready to go and you can build up. So again, once you have your HVAC permit, really simple to put together. Your engineering doesn't take very long. Again, once they have the architectural drawings, they're pretty good at this. It takes another couple of weeks to get that done. Once you've got your building permit, now you got to go through one more step, and that is the development charge deferral program. Now, I've heard some rumblings that they're even getting rid of that, but currently, the way that building works in the city is if you want a 1-bedroom, it's X amount. I think it's $40,000 for development charges that you have to pay. So if you want to, that's one of the reasons, by the way, that when you're going and you see a lot of these basement apartments and they're not legal, right? And the reason being is that people don't want to pay the $40,000 development charges to the city. For a 2-bedroom, I believe it's around $60,000. So with the development charge deferral program, essentially you sign an agreement with the government that says that you will not sell the Laneway house. And we'll talk about that in the frequently asked questions. You can't really sever it. There are some Laneway houses in the city that have been severed and sold, but for the most part you can, and we'll talk about why in a couple minutes. But essentially you're just making a promise that you're not going to sell it, and in return they will waive the development charge fee. And again, that takes a couple of days to a week to get approved. And then of course from there, it's just a matter of starting to build, getting your trades together, whether you use a general contractor or sort of trying to contract it out yourself. That's something that you're going to get started with. And one of the things, again, I'm not sure if we covered this later in the frequently asked questions, but one of the things with a Laneway house, and one of the reasons you can't sever it, is because the services are shared with the main property. So you're going to add an extension on to your plumbing, and you're going to run it 6 feet underground or 4 feet underground, whatever the frost line is, just over 4 feet. And that's going to connect to your main house. Same thing with electrical, and same thing with gas. So you're going to run those services from your main house. Now, in the main home, they will typically branch off, so you'll have different lines. But where it's coming from the city, from the street, it's all being done through the main property. And because of that, it makes it very difficult to sever. Now, some of the ones that you will see severed are on corner lots, or they're the end of the laneway where there's another connection that they can make directly to the laneway from the street, right? So you can actually have your plumbing come right from the center of the road into the laneway as opposed to coming through the house. So again, you'll see those opportunities in the market sometimes. Okay, so again, pretty simple process. Again, there we go. So we're talking about service. So again, pretty simple stuff. Your foundation is something you want to look at, and then your financing is something we're going to talk about for the build. So here's the timing. Your drawings, again, 4 to 6 weeks. Your building permit, 2 to 4 weeks. And then your construction can be from anywhere from 4 to 6 months. Rental, as you know, in the market right now, if you're looking to rent it out, as soon as you put it up, and laneways are extremely sought after. It's a really neat opportunity for people to have that, live in housing neighborhoods, have that housing lifestyle. And again, you're going to get really strong rents for these types of properties because they're very unique and people really like them. All right, so let's talk about some of the advantages, specific advantages of a laneway house and sort of why I think it's such a great opportunity. The first is that there's a huge return, right? And we're going to give some examples, but it's really the cash on cash return is sort of 3 times higher than the current condo market. So the amount of money you have to put in to get X amount of rent, you have to put in a third of the amount of money that you'd have to put in to buy a condo and get the same amount of rent. The second piece is that, again, what you're paying for the laneway to build it versus the appreciation that it adds to your property, there's very few buffers out there like that. One of the things we're seeing in the marketplace as property prices rise is that people have to build really luxury in order to create that sort of that buffer zone if you're flipping a property. You know, you used to be able to buy it at $1 million. You could put in $500,000 and, you know, or 200,000 or 300,000 and sell it for 1.8. Well, now when you're buying something for, you know, 1.5, 1.6, 1.8, and you're putting in $500,000, you really, you know, you're starting to play in a different space, and your numbers are quite constricted. So now people are building like the $3 or $4 million house in order to make sure that they create that buffer. In terms of a laneway, it's just simple, right? $300,000 going to return, you know, cover $800,000 of a mortgage. There's such a big gap built into these types of properties. It's really hard to find any other opportunity like this. The other thing I think is really neat opportunity, I think you're going to start to see a lot more group buying. It's something I'm pretty passionate about. People are having a harder and harder time getting into the market. And for some reason, people look at properties as if like they have to be the only person owning one. And I don't really understand that mentality, because it becomes a business at some point. there's very few people that are independent business owners. I mean, there's some of them, but most business people have business partners. Let's start to treat real estate the same way. So I think this is something you're going to see a lot more of, group buying. And again, one of the things that makes a laneway so attractive for this type of an arrangement is that no one's left kind of with the worst property, right? I mean, if you bought a property together with someone, let's say it was a single family with a basement apartment. One person's getting the basement apartment, one person's getting the top 3 stories. In this case, you can build a beautiful 13, 14, 1,500 square foot laneway house. One of the parties can live in that. The other party can live in the nice house at the front. So again, I think it's a really neat opportunity for people to get equal ownership and then equal benefit from the properties that they're purchasing. The other thing that's really neat is there's a lot less impact, right? If you buy a house and renovate it or flip it, you can't live in it. You know, every single month you're having to rent someplace else. You're losing, any income potential from that property. With a laneway house, you can live in the house and you can build the laneway at the same time. It's a lot less impact on the property, so you can still get value out of it. And I think that's a really neat piece of it. And then again, your refinance ability. I don't know that that's a word, but you're adding you're doing 2 things. One is you're getting phenomenal rent, which is going to, when you go to refinance, it's going to pay you more than what the refinancing is. And the second is that you're adding immediate value, right? This is one of those opportunities where you put in $300,000 and day one, you've increased your property value by $800,000. So unlike doing a renovation or waiting for a property just to increase in value, you're creating value very, very quickly and very easy to measure value that you can take advantage of in terms of refinancing and using those funds either to pay for the laneway or to invest in other opportunities. The other nice thing, again, people look at these as rentals, but this is a great opportunity long-term to build better living space, right? Most people, when they need more space, they go to the basement. Well, basements are, I like basements, but basement's not above ground quality living space. A laneway, it's even easier again than building a 3rd story on your house. You get into 3rd stories, you have to do all kinds of structural foundational things. You're dealing with, you're ripping the roof off your house so you can't live in it. This is another opportunity to create another space for you to grow into, whether that's an office space, an entertaining space, a place for parents to move to or to send their kids to when they get a little bit older and need more privacy. So it's a lot of flexibility in this type of living, but you're getting the best, right? You're getting above ground, high quality. It's a new property. A lot of the houses in Toronto are old, so you're getting something new that's going to have a lot less maintenance costs on it, but you are getting above ground, really high quality living. And again, as we're going to talk about in a second, who this is really interesting for, this is also, what we're finding is that the majority of this are like older people living in these houses in Toronto. They don't want to move out. They don't want to go to nursing homes or whatnot, but they need help. And so the ability for a child to come live with them, but also feel like they're still independent, having that separate area that's theirs. And again, it's a great transitionary plan as well. If you're going to hand over an asset to your kids, maybe there's a mortgage on the property, maybe not, but you're leaving it to them in a better place where now, it's easier for them to afford it and provides them with some long-term security in terms of income. So again, it's a really great generational type of a build. So again, who is this great for? And I think this is one of the other neat things. It's great for a lot of different people. It's obviously great for investors because, as we're going to show you in a second, it's the rental income to investment is 3 times higher at least than you're going to find in a condo. People that are currently owners, this is a huge untapped market. You can speed up your retirement. Again, get family care. You can prepare the property for inheritance, or you can just add some extra cash to your pocket. You want to travel, you want to do whatnot. This is a positive cash flow investment opportunity that's, again, going to add value to your property. It's great for flippers. Whether you're doing, if you're going to buy an old house, fix the front up. And that's what you would have just done before. Now you've got an extra benefit and more cushion now by building the laneway and adding that immediate measurable value to the property when you want to sell it. And then of course for end users, that's me, right? I mean, this was part of our plan. As the real estate market increases, if you're a parent out there looking to purchase for your child, if you're just someone who's looking to buy a property and you don't want to stretch outside your means, which most of us are to buy nowadays, this is going to help you offset some of that. It's going to help you afford the property. I call it responsible buying. If you're going to gift something to your kids, you might give them a few $100,000, but they're still stuck with a payment. Well, let's set something up for them that helps them with that payment. And a laneway is the best, absolutely the best way of doing that. One of the things I didn't mention here is it's separated living, right? In basement apartment, someone's there. If you live in an old house, you're going to hear them. This is separated living. It's no different than having a neighbor, right? That's completely private. You don't share a wall with them. So it's a really, that's another advantage to this. But for end users, again, I call this responsible buying, where you can have a property and offset some of that cost to help you afford it. Have someone else pay down your mortgage. So let's just go through the numbers. I mean, this is where things just become really real, right? We're going to use this is my property. It's 850 square feet. It's a 2-bed, 1-bath. Great open floor plan. Again, you guys kind of saw it in those earlier pictures. So it cost me less than this, but nowadays it costs about $300 a foot to build a laneway house. And again, it depends on the quality that you're doing and which general contractor you hire. But as a general rule, let's call it $300,000. And again, kind of broken down into some different categories here: $10,000 to $12,000 for an architect. Your engineer is going to be, again, you can find different prices everywhere, but $7,500 for an engineer. The HVAC's pretty standard, $1,500. And then again, depending on the quality of the build that you're going to do, around $300 a square foot. Okay, so $300,000. Well, a condo that returns $3,000 a month in rent costs $800,000. That's general. Again, we can play around with those numbers as much as you want, but generally speaking, you're going to have to spend $800,000 in order to generate $3,000 a month. Well, that $3,000 a month, again, is subsidizing about $800,000 in mortgage. So it's pretty close to break even if you can find a property at $800,000 at 2.94% interest is what we used. So in terms of the laneway now, you've spent $300,000 to generate $800,000 of mortgage payment, to subsidize $800,000 of mortgage payment. So again, let's just look at this quickly. 800 square foot condo, 800,000. It's about $1,000 a foot. And as you guys know, if you're buying new stuff, it's $1,100, $1,200 a foot. You're gonna get $3,000 a month. In terms of the laneway, 800 square feet. The cost is $300,000, and that rent is $3,000 a month. I actually rent mine for $3,200, so I think that this is very conservative in terms of what your return is. But as you can see, I mean, it's black and white, right? The cost of buying things is always the land. You want to maximize that opportunity when you get it. Financing. So this is an important piece because you're going to need $300,000. You put $300,000 on buying the house. I don't have $600,000. Well, one of the nice things is there are a lot of builders out there doing this that will essentially finance the project. So they'll pay for it up front. Of course, you have to pay them back, but they're going to pay for it up front. And then once the property is built and you have that $3,000 a month renter, then you're going to go back to the bank and they are going to use that $3,000 a month in order to provide you with additional financing. Depending on which financing company you're going with, typically it's 50% of that $3,000 they'll take. Some, like CMHC, will take 100%. So as we just talked about, $3,000 a month covers $800,000 in financing. Even if you cut it in half, it's $400,000 for your $300,000 purchase. And again, remember, the nice thing about this is that when you take that financing out, which we're going to look at in a second, you're not paying a penny of it. Someone else is paying off this asset completely for you and then some. So let's look at these numbers. You find a house, $1.3 million. Again, I know that's tough, but you can still do it. That means you need $300,000 for the down payment, land transfer tax, etc. That sets your mortgage up at around $4,200 a month. Your taxes another $300, $400. So you're all in at about $4,500 a month. The Laneway, you don't need any cash if you find the right builder, which we can set you up with. Your mortgage on the $300,000 is at most $1,200. I actually used a higher rate for this than I did for the house, so $1,200 a month. And then again, using my example of $3,200 a month, you net a positive cash flow of $2,000 a month. Total cost of ownership. If your house is $4,532 and you get $2,000 of cash in your pocket, you now live in a $2 million house for $2,500 a month. That's the average price of a one bedroom. Now, again, you need the $300,000 cash. No one's arguing that. We all know those examples. But your payment now becomes incredibly manageable. This is what we call responsible home buying. This is value-based home buying where someone else pays the majority of your mortgage for you. Your renters are paying more than you're paying to live in the front of the house. The other nice thing again is your total property cost now 1.6, and then you put in 300,000. Now you're looking at well over 2 million, at least $2 million, right? You've added $700,000 to $800,000 of tangible value because that's how much mortgage they're covering. And that's what we've seen. We've started to see some of the properties flip in the marketplace, and this is the type of return that people are getting on that number. Again, imagine you're building a 12 or 1,300 square foot place. The actual building costs not significantly more, and your return now you're getting $4,000 a month at least for that type of property. So again, when you look at the numbers, it's just so easy to see that cushion, right? Okay, you go way over budget, you spend $500,000. I mean, you're talking about your mortgage payment now being, $1,700 a month while you're collecting $3,200. So that's what I mean. You've got so much built-in cushion here for this type of an investment that it's really, really hard or impossible to find anything that competes with this in terms of its guaranteed return. All right, so now you're going to ask me questions. I'm going to ask them myself, but your frequently asked questions, we covered this already. Will you lose your parking? Not necessarily. Again, you can keep a parking spot. You can keep two. Lots of people are doing that, and they're just renting out the upstairs. So that's something that you can decide on your own. You might have enough setback to have both, right? You might move the Laneway House 10 feet back from the lot line and still have a parking pad or a parking area. Can you sell the Laneway? Again, we covered this. Not really. There are specific instances where you can sever. It's been done, but they have to meet specific criteria. If your services are traveling from the main street all the way through to your property, it's going to be very difficult or impossible to sever. If you're on a corner, if there's, again, there's like Ski Lane, which is one of the areas. It's a laneway down in Dundas West. There's precedence for a number of different laneway properties there that have been severed. So again, you're going to have to find places that either have the right zoning for it, have precedence for it, or that are a little bit unique. If you're on like a main street, right? If the laneway is on something like Dufferin or whatnot, then you may be able to qualify. Can your neighbors stop it? Again, they can't. I mean, they have control over certain things. My property was a semi-detached. We had a shared wall. My neighbor didn't want me to build on the shared wall, and so I moved the wall inside the wall. I'm 8 inches over. I ended up having 2 walls, but I moved it 8 inches over. But again, most of it's in your control. As long as you meet those requirements in terms of the fire hydrant and the side yard setback for a garden suite, it's totally in your control. It's in the law. The one thing we didn't talk about was trees. Trees are pretty complicated. So if you do have a tree, it's much more difficult. You can absolutely go and talk to the transportation. I think it's the Ministry of Transportation, funny enough, that takes care of that. Either way, you can. There are ways around it, but it's much easier if you don't have a tree. The city obviously is very, very serious about their trees and the canopies in the city, as they should be. Can you build as large as you want? Again, as we talked about, you can't. There's a maximum footprint, but the footprint again it's a little bit under 1750. I think it's 1715, and then if you're a garden suite, it's 645 feet times 2. You can build a basement as well. I mean, I've seen it done. Again, it's no different than if you tore down a semi-detached house. Of course, you're dealing with more headaches. You got to deal with shoring, and that's never fun. You just have to sort of take into account what the value it's going to be. You can't build more than a 2-bedroom. I mean, you could obviously put a 3rd bedroom in after the fact, but you can't have like 2 units. So if you really want the storage or something like that, you can do it. But again, the idea is that you absolutely can build a basement if you'd like to. You just obviously can't exceed that 19-foot 6. You can't make 2 units. It has to be a single family dwelling. Those are all the frequently asked questions. So that's the end of our presentation today. Again, thank you so much for joining me. This is something that is on all of our realtor websites. So if you want to share it with somebody, whoever invited you or sent this video to you, please make sure to share it and stay up to date with our sites, because we're going to have, as I said, a number of different assets that you can use in order to stay up to date on this, keep up to date with properties. That's something you're going to have to reach out to us about and ask if you'd like. If you'd like to send properties, then whoever invited you today or sent the video to you, make sure you reach out to them and they can set you up on an automatic property drip so that you're only sent properties that are Laneway House eligible or Garden Suite eligible. I hope you really enjoyed today. Again, it's something I'm really passionate about, and it's something that I would love for all of you to take advantage of, because it's a great opportunity in the market. So good luck, and again, thanks for joining us.